today we are actually in the kitchen of the 1890s Clay County Museum in jail. Did I get that right? Is that close?
Clay County, it's 1890 Clay County Jail Museum Heritage Center.
Very good. We want to get all that in because it's important. I'm visiting today with Lucille Glasgow. And Lucille has been one of the founding members of this, and you've been working with the museum for a long time.
Yes, I was a charter member. Eugene Hearn, who had retired from a position, of course he'd been a veteran a long time, came back and he was very interested in the Clay County history. So he got us legal. He got us a 501c3 designation with IRS. That means that you can donate to the organization and take off your income tax when that's the law. And he went around the country gathering pictures from people, and he published 2 books of these pictures, which we still have volume 2 for sale. Volume 1 is considered a rare book now, but it's very important because it represents all parts of the county. And he was very insistent when we finally got a museum started that it be called also a heritage center, because our purpose is to collect and preserve and display the information about Clay County and the surrounding area, because county lines are not recognized by animals or Indians or some of the early frontiersmen for that matter.
How important is it for the children? I know that you do a lot of tours for school children and that sort of thing as well.
Well, we want them to realize what their heritage is, that it was not always smartphones and iPads and all these other things that they think are just always here. Because they need to realize that we had a telephone on the wall after some time, and that when the people first came here, it was entirely different. It was a place of danger, but it was a place of opportunity. People came to Clay County for opportunity. The Civil War had pretty well decimated a lot of the South, and Texas was a place to come, and Clay County was authorized by the legislature in 1856, but there weren't enough people up here, enough white people to do anything, and they came in before the Civil War a little bit, but mostly they had to leave then again because the Indians came back in, and also in Clay County during the Civil War there were a lot of desperados up here, people that didn't want to go to fight for the South or the North, outlaws and so forth. So civilization was a pretty long time coming to Clay County. But
sometimes I say Clay County is the western edge of civilization. That was a true statement back then?
It was then, and then, of course, after the Civil War then, people still couldn't come in lots of cases because of the Indian menace. And finally, in 1873, the legislature reinstated Clay County, and Clay County was formed and has, then grown since then. So that was our second beginning and the last beginning.
Now, we're not without controversy, because I remember it being told about how, was it Cambridge is where the courthouse and records were in the beginning?
Cambridge, I feel like, was, and the story sometimes is controversial which came first, but Cambridge, I think, must have had the first small settlement, and I don't know why they came over to Henrietta then. And it seems, I found out just recently that there was a question about the land titles in Henrietta, and there was no question in Cambridge. But when the railroad came through from the Fort Worth and Denver City Railroad came through in 1882, it came through Henrietta, the present Henrietta, instead of Cambridge, which at one time had been called New Henrietta, and that is one thing that has confused the issue.
Sure.
And so a lot of people from Cambridge just picked up their houses and moved over here and named some of the streets the same as they had named the ones in Cambridge.
I didn't know that.
And so Henrietta became the seat then, the county seat. Of course, when the legislature laid out Henrietta, I think Clay County, they said Henrietta would be the county seat of it. And for a long time, people thought that Henrietta, this town, was named after Henry Clay's wife, but that's not true. His wife's name was Lucretia, and we feel like that Henrietta was just a feminine form of Henry Clay,
okay.
the statesman that it was named after. And the officers were elected and had a government ever since. Now, we want our young people to know this history because some of their great-great-great or maybe great-great-great-grandparents were alive at that time.
Sure.
We have names back then that are still here. And they need to know that this is where they were and how it was then. And then let's just jump to the time when Mr. Hearn got our Historical Society started. And that was long, I said, about 1975, 78, somewhere along in there. And we raised money. We had raffles of this and that. We raffled off, I think, a smoker one time, a quilt one time, a watch one time we sold watches that had the Clay County outline on the dial. And we would make $5,000 and we'd spend $5,000 on this building after we really finally decided we were going to have a museum in this old jail building.
Now, and I want to cover that, but just for those that perhaps have not been to Henrietta, the building we're in right now was actually not the original jail, but it's a really good-sized, large building.
It is. It was built in 1890, and it was built to house, the jail part was built to house 100 prisoners, because Clay County was going to get a federal court here.
Oh.
That did not happen. So in 1929, they took out the third level of cells in the jail part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this was an uptown house for 1890.
Yeah.
When you see the size of the closets in the bedrooms upstairs, there are 2 closets in there that must be 6 by 6. And that's highly unusual for houses at that period of time.
Who actually lived here besides the prisoners and those that had been
The
thrown in
sheriff
the jail?
and his family, or a deputy, lived in the jail here. The wife was in this very kitchen, cooked for the prisoners as well as her family. And I understand a lot of times maybe some of the deputies, some of the city officials would eat. I know one man who visited his grandfather, who was sheriff at the time, in this very kitchen, said what he remembered most was that grandmother had a really long table here, and it was always full of people at the meals. And we have one lady working with us now whose father was sheriff, and she lived here as a teenager, and she said she learned to cook here.
Well, there you go.
And said it discouraged the prisoners from wanting to come back to jail because they didn't like her cooking. She was just learning.
Well, I can understand that. That's good.
So,
that is good.
And we, as I said, we'd raise $5,000 and spend $5,000. We tried to get the windows in first, and most of them have a little tag on a little metal tag because somebody donated $400 for a window and put their family name on it. And Ms. Nell Wilson out here said, we're never going to renovate that building this way. We'll all be dead before we can raise the money for it. So we decided at her suggestion to have a capital funds campaign. And we raised $250,000
Wow.
to renovate the building. So we opened as a museum in 1997. And so we've been open for over 20 years now.
As I was walking up this morning, I noticed there are a lot of bricks and a lot of monuments around it. Is that part of the project?
That was part of the money-raising project. By the time we opened the museum, we had, I think, over 1,000 bricks had been engraved with people's name, and they had given us money for it. And so they were all laid at the same time. We're still taking donations for bricks, and each year we get 10 or so of them that are sold and laid, and we're almost to the west.
How much is a brick?
Well, a brick is $50 now. I think we
Okay.
started out with 25, but times
Well,
have changed.
inflation, it's supply and demand, I think makes a difference
That's
on
right.
that.
And then, of course, we have the squares, the limestone squares, 12-inch squares that you can put more on, and you can put brands and things like that. And they sell for $300.
So if somebody, perhaps if you've never been to the museum and you'd like to bring your children, or if you're a teacher and you'd like to bring a class, what can we expect to see when we get here?
Well, we have two sections of it. There's the jail, and that's what interests most people because they don't normally go into a jail, and it's not like modern jails anyway, but it has the bars and you can clang the doors. You can be in the slammer because in the slammer it's definitely a metallic ring to it. And I like to see that, and of course we have filled the whole place with all sorts of historic items, from little tiny thimbles maybe to I don't know what the biggest thing is we have in here. We have a table in here that was in the bank, the Worsham Bank at one time, that almost fills the room. And we have items, kitchen items, we have furniture, we have costumes or clothing, we have dishes, we have a little bit of everything. And I'm especially interested in all the paper things that we have, what we call our archives.
Oh.
Because, I was an English teacher, so I'm interested in writing and reading, and we have all of this, and we have records of all the little items, big items. Everything in here is, at least we're working on it. We can't quite stay up to date on it because about the time we think we're about caught up, somebody donates something else, and we've got some more work to do.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Everything has to be recorded, and it's all cataloged more or less professionally, and so that you can come in and you can ask if you have a certain thing donated by grandmother so-and-so. We're beginning to be able to look in the computer and find that out, and that's much faster than having to use all the paper records. But as I said, I'm interested in that part of it because to me, the written record is very important, and we're getting more and more requests now from outside sources. See, digitization is taking place in a lot of the universities now, and we have some 900 of our pictures that have been collected over the years down at what they call Portal to Texas History at the University of North Texas in Denton. And we have just recently had some of our tapes and CDs and things taken to Austin to a group that's called Texas Archives of Moving Images to be digitized so that you can go on the internet and see those pictures and see those things. And we'll eventually get some of our old newspapers digitized by the Southwest Collection out at Texas Tech. They're coming the end of this month to pick them up.
Wow.
So I'm excited about all this because it puts us out into the world.
No doubt. And makes it more available to everybody. Those of you that are watching right now, we'll find those websites and we'll post those for you as well so that you can go and look at those. Now, I know that Clay County, agriculture is very important to us. Farming, ranching. One of the things that I've seen around the jail has been some great pictorials and information about some of the great ranches in Clay County as well.
Well, we get information about everything, and anybody that gives us a story we usually keep it.
That's awesome. That is wonderful.
Having a little trouble.
Something new that you've done. Well, it's not real new, I guess. You've done this for a while, but you've incorporated some of the agricultural equipment, the old plows and tractors and what have you, in the building next door to the museum.
That's right, and I call it an agricultural museum, or it's our old farm stuff.
Sure.
And we've got everything from a little bitty oil can to let's see, the biggest thing we have out there is a covered wagon.
There you go. That actually was in the sesquicentennial trip around Texas as well.
That's right. And so it's been donated to us, and it's sitting there in the museum, but it has the cover on it and everything. It's a regular Conestoga, I believe the word is,
Yes.
covered wagon. And then we have a Ford tractor, and I can't tell you the date on the Ford tractor.
That's okay.
It's
But a
small.
thresher and sickle mowers and just a wonderful. So if somebody wanted to come and see that, actually touch it and feel it and look at it and talk to the children about it, remember, maybe even bring back some memories of when you used to drive one of them or rode on one of them or used one of them. When can they do that? What are the hours for the?
Well, we're open on Thursday and Friday from 10 until 2.
Okay.
Or later if you are here early enough.
You'll make arrangements.
And make
Somebody
arrangements,
just
right.
loves showing it to you.
For tours or individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're open on Saturday from 1 till 4.
Okay.
And there's somebody that can take you through and show you all these things and let you see it. See, here in the house we have the kitchen, and we call it the lawman's office, which would have been usually the living room for the family,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 bedrooms upstairs, 3 bedrooms upstairs, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And we even have an attic for storage, but we don't take people up there. And then we have the foyer to connect the 2 buildings. And then on the jail, we have 2 stories of the cages, we call them, the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all full of items. They're not full of prisoners. But we have a little mattress on one of the steel shelves, you might say, that serves as a cot.
If you'd like to get a feel for what might have been like, that would be
That's
good.
right. And you can see that, but you can see everything from a washing machine that's been made into a churn, and we have the setup that they used to use to enlarge pictures, because we have a lot of the Indian pictures that were taken by an artist, Alice Sturley here, and Lon Kelly was a photographer, and they went up into Indian Territory in 1895 and took all these pictures, and we have a lot of those. But we have this contraption or machine that they use to enlarge pictures.
I'm impressed with the telephone switch
Board.
The switch, it's actually a switchboard that I remember in Vashti had growing up. I can still remember 2 longs and a short was our ring. And we had a crank phone. And in Vashti, we had a lady that would plug those. You've actually got one of those here.
We have the one from Byers up here, given to us by Mr. Gordon Holmes, who had an independent telephone company.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the switchboard, and like I said, we have the old ringer type phone on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of those in my home out between Petrolia and Charlie till 1959.
You're not that old, I know. You're not that old.
Till
I know for sure.
1959, when they got the dial system.
Sure, absolutely.
And so it's nothing new to me, but it is new to most kids.
The
that come
original
through.
smartphone. Because it took somebody smart to run it, I'll tell you for sure.
That's right. And, we have the system where you can see where the lady sat and said, number, please.
Oh, my.
And we can demonstrate that to the kids. That's the only thing. I wish we had more things in the museum that could be demonstrated.
Sure.
Hands-on.
Sure.
Now, out in the barn with all the equipment and all, you can put your hands on that.
Sure.
I don't think you're going to hurt it.
No.
But so that's an advantage.
Now, one of the projects that you've worked on, you were telling me about earlier, is that you and a bunch of your friends actually jumped in the car and traveled around to some of the locations in Clay County, and you and your friends have written extensively about those locations.
Well, in 1990, I believe we did the first trip.
Mm-hmm.
We went with Billy and J.D. Avis.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from Henrietta out through Cambridge and Doss and up to the county line, you might say, to Stanfield and Riverman, Byers, Thornberry, Petrolia, Dean, and came back because we were charting out a route because we hired a bus, and we had about 40 people that paid. And this was a money-raising project, but it was also a history.
So you
thing.
actually gave a historical tour of the county for about 40 folks that wanted to ride the bus and do that.
That's right. And that first one, we went all in that northern part of the county, and I had a little tape recorder and recorded because everybody would say, well, now, old Mr. So-and-so used to live over there, and there used to be a barn there, it's blown away now, and there used to be a farm, and there's the ranch. We passed by the Stanfield Ranch, or used to be Stanfield Ranch.
Yes.
And all these places. So I named the book It Used to Be That Way. Remembered Bits of Clay County, because that's what we said all that afternoon was it used to be this way. And but I maintain that everybody has a story, so I've started collecting these stories. And then we went down toward one trip. We made down toward Arrowhead and all the Cobb was community down there, and.
Well, that was one of the original history harvests then that you actually went through.
Well, yes, now they're calling it Harvesting Texas History.
Yes.
And
What a
then
great
we went
idea.
to
And
the
you
other
all
part of the
pioneered
county.
that.
So this book contains something about all parts of the county, really.
That's awesome.
And but we've collected stories since then, because I still once in a while go visit some of our older members of the communities and get their story, and
So-
have to transcribe it.
Here's an opportunity. This is sort of what I'm doing right now. If you have a story you'd like to tell about Clay County, give me a call or call here at the museum, talk to Miss Glasgow, and she'll be glad to get your name and number, and let's get together and talk about it, because I think that would be an important thing to do, to capture these memories while they're still available, because frankly we're losing folks and it needs to be done. And we've got such a rich history in Clay County that's just absolutely amazing, and y'all have done a wonderful job of restoring the museum, restoring the jail, and stocking it with all the really fun things to look at that'll really bring back a lot of memories for folks. And most importantly, as you said, let our young people know how it used to be.
And one of our most valuable things, I think,
let me
here
take care of that,
is
yes.
what we call the Tourist Slagle notebook or scrapbook.
Okay.
Tourist Slagle was a person that lived here 1900, 1910, and so forth. And she collected pictures, newspaper clippings, just lots of different things. I think she must have sat at the registration table during Pioneer Reunion, and people brought her things. And she put them in a scrapbook, I think she had 2 scrapbooks. And she had the pictures labeled, which
Yes.
is unusual.
Yes.
And she had them in family groups so much of the time. And we were fortunate that it stayed in Clay County. Louise Womack had it. She was related, I think. It was Tourist Slagle was the one that did all of this, or collected all this and put it into scrapbooks. And we have the original scrapbook upstairs in our archives room.
Wow.
Each page is in Mylar plastic so that it will stay. But you can photograph it. And we have this book that you see here is a copy of it. I
Okay.
just went to a copy place and copied it all, and we made an index for it, so that in the index down here you can see if your relative is in it and which book it's in and all. And then if you really want a good copy, we can go upstairs and copy the original.
So for people that are doing ancestry searches, that are really into that, genealogy, then this is the museum is a wonderful resource for that.
We had a lady come in last week who was a granddaughter of Tourist Slagle's sister.
Ah.
And so we had all sorts of pictures that she was interested in. And George Slagle even had an old scrapbook that Tour had made for just her family. And it was in pretty bad shape. The scrapbooks themselves wear out, the pictures don't. And we had scanned it, so we had a good copy of it. So George just gave this old scrapbook to this lady.
Wow.
Because she was of the Britton family, not the Slagle family.
Sure.
See? And all these things just it makes me so excited. I just get goosebumps, because to know that we have something that someone else is looking for. It's like a treasure hunt almost.
Absolutely. And I can imagine they really get excited
Oh,
when
they
they
do.
see their family, they see their ancestors. For example, I never knew any of my grandparents. I'm a late life child, so I never knew any of my grandparents at all. So to see any pictures or anything from them, oh, that would be amazing.
Oh, well, I'll have to tell this. We have a letter that was written by an 80-year-old woman to Mr. Slagle here in Henrietta, and she told about her life as a teenager here. And she was a lively young lady. I think she was a tomboy to start with. And her experiences are worth reading.
Oh,
And I guess it was her brother-in-law then, who was a photographer and made a lot of the Indian pictures I talked about, and a lot of the pictures that went in the tourist Slagle thing. Lon Kelly made a lot of these, and Alice Snurley, who was a sister-in-law to Lon Kelly. And we had one of these letters on our website, and some relatives of that family saw it and knew, of course, very much what it was,
yeah.
who it was. So we had, with arrangement, of course, we had a visit from a young lady from Chicago, and one of the relatives from Arizona, and one from Florida, and one from Texas. They came and visited us. And they were just amazed at the pictures that we had that they didn't have. Now, they had quite a few, but they didn't have all of them. And, I mean, they were excited, and we get excited. And that's what makes volunteering here work.
Oh, isn't that great? So if you're planning a reunion and you're going to have it here in Henrietta or Clay County, that might be part of your agenda, is to drop by the museum and just show the kids. That to me is so very important, that they see what it was like back then, and if nothing else, makes us appreciate the way it is now, perhaps.
That's right.
Of course, I don't know. Sometimes a quieter time is not a bad thing.
Oh, well, you know, they say that the country, or I could say the family that doesn't have a past doesn't have a future.
Well said.
And
Absolutely.
I think Churchill is one that said it about a country. And I think it's very important that we know something about our past.
No question about that.
When you come visit here, you see pieces of it. And when you work here, after a while, you learn there's a lot to it.
Absolutely right. Well, Ms. Glasgow, thank you so much for your time. My hope was that as we visit, and I want to do this again as well, is we'll post these and make them available to our friends and neighbors, and we'll visit with other folks from the museum, and hopefully with you again as well. We're going to take a walking tour one of these days of the Ag Museum so that you can see that as well, and maybe even through the building here too, to kind of give you a preview of what you'll see when you show up or when you come to the museum. What does it cost to tour?
Oh, it doesn't really cost anything, but we appreciate donations.
Very good.
We get donations we used to charge $2, and we kept books on it for a while, and it's much easier just to
I bet
take
you do better
donations.
just people donating as well.
Right.
Anyway, I bet that's the case as well.
I picked up a $100 check this morning out of the box
Yes.
from a person that came and found a lot of stuff.
Oh my.
And then maybe a lot of people don't pay anything, but that's
Sure.
that's their prerogative.
Well, you're here. It's a service, and it's a great service too to the people of Clay County. We thank you for what you do, and all the
You're welcome.
volunteers that work. There's a bunch of them. We'd start naming names, but I assure you we'd leave somebody out, so we're not going to do that.
I've just been fortunate that I'm retired and have a lot of time. Not everybody does.
Someday maybe I will too. All right.
So-
Thank you, Ms. Glasgow. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.